By now, you have already seen it. Yes, the Montreal Canadiens have defeated the Winnipeg Jets 4-0. It was a sweep in the second round of their 2021 Stanley Cup Playoff series. As a result, the Canadiens are the kings of the North, and they're going to America, baby. The first hockey game between American and Canadian international NHL competition happening since the bubble. Yeah, this stuff's gonna happen in the next round. We're just waiting if it's gonna be Colorado or Vegas. We'll see what happens soon. We have a lot of days to discuss the possibilities. But yesterday, after the Canadiens ended up defeating the Winnipeg Jets in overtime of game number 4 to take the series clinching 4-0 lead, there were 2 words trending on hockey Twitter. In fact, not even just hockey Twitter, just on my Twitter timeline in general. I do think that because my Twitter timeline is based around hockey a lot, I follow a lot of hockey people, I like a lot of hockey stuff, and I retweet a lot of hockey stuff, I do think that my Twitter algorithm kind of automatically filters hockey topics that are in the spotlight to pop up on my side feed already. But regardless, even if that's the case, there were 2 words that were trending on Twitter yesterday after the Canadiens beat Winnipeg. And the first one, it's a player on the Jets, Dubois. Just that word, Dubois, was trending because so many people were talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois, a center acquired by the Winnipeg Jets in a trade a few months ago, and his overall performance. But the other word that was trending very heavily on Twitter yesterday was Laine. Patrik Laine, Columbus Blue Jackets forward. That team isn't even playing anymore. What gives? Why are people giving his name attention? Well, because they're talking about the Pierre-Luc Dubois Patrik Laine trade, obviously you connected the dots, you know exactly what we're talking about here. Patrik Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois were swapped in a 2-for-1 trade a few months ago. Dubois was traded over to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for Patrik Laine and Jack Roslovic. Now, the difference between these 2 assets was honestly not really all that great. Sure, the play styles and the positions, it's completely different. Laine is a goal-scoring, on the stick, off the stick kind of just sniper guy. Pierre-Luc Dubois is supposed to be a 2-way monster on center. Different players, but the circumstances in which these 2 players were acquired by their teams were pretty similar. Patrik Laine, 2nd overall in the 2016 draft behind Austin Matthews, drafted by Winnipeg. Pierre-Luc Dubois, 3rd overall, drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets in that same 2016 draft. So we had all the rumors, we had all the trade speculation, the actual trade itself, plus the fallout. It was a really big deal when Pierre-Luc Dubois, a guy who was very well documented to wanting to depart Columbus, was traded for Laine. And not even just Laine. He was traded for Laine and Jack Roslovic, another guy on the Jets that also kind of wanted out because he wasn't really being used, and this and that and the other thing. Oh, he's good, he's bad. You can say whatever you want about Jack Roslovic. The point is, with the Jets, Roslovic wasn't given a chance to be the Roslovic that he showed off he could be in Columbus. So when you have this big trade go down, 2 absolutely phenomenal young stars. Patrik Laine is a 40-goal scorer at best, probably a 50-goal scorer as he gets older and better. You have Pierre-Luc Dubois, who absolutely shut down the Toronto Maple Leafs in last year's playoff bubble, beating them in 5 games in the elimination round. Okay, cool. Big swap. 2 guys, really big star power attached to them, plus Jack Roslovic too. Well, the reason these guys were trending the other day is because when you talk about the actual trade itself, I think Jabo Vancouver kind of summarizes it nicely. Has there ever been a trade quite like Dubois for Laine, where both teams traded for a star player and both teams wound up losing that trade badly? Patrik Laine for Pierre-Luc Dubois was trending yesterday because people were pointing out how much of a lose-lose trade, in the short term at the very least, this trade has been. Patrik Laine, when he was acquired by the Columbus Blue Jackets, we all thought, oh, he's going to go out there and be a goal scorer. He's going to have the chains just lifted from his shoulders. He's not going to be held back anymore. He could go out there, score some goals. He had 28 goals in 68 games last year. What's he going to do this year? Well, he put up 10 goals in 45 games. Okay, not great. 21 points too. I mean, it's not great. I wonder what happened with Patrik Laine. What happened there? Well, if you've been paying attention to this channel, you know exactly what happened. Patrik Laine was the subject of demotions, benchings, fourth-line shifts. And, you know, when you talk about giving a star player the room to move around and be a star player, that is absolutely not what Patrik Laine received in Columbus. It's not like they acquired a bad player. It's just they acquired a player whose skill set really didn't fit with the system that John Tortorella put out onto his team. Which is why the drama for Patrik Laine and Tortorella and the inconsistencies with that coaching staff over there made headlines several times. We made so many videos talking about the drama in Columbus with Patrik Laine. For Pierre-Luc Dubois, he's supposed to be a good shutdown center, this and that, who can put up points. His career high with the Blue Jackets, 61 points in 82 games in 2018-19. Last year, though, in the bubble, crazy. 10 points, 10 games in the playoffs. Absolutely phenomenal what he did there, shutting down Toronto and doing his best against Tampa Bay in the first round. What did he do when he made his debut in Winnipeg? Well, he got 20 points in 41 games. So, I mean, he produced at the same rate, almost got the same amount of goals, had the same amount of assists pretty much too. What gives? Pierre-Luc Dubois was thrusted into a system where you take a look at the center depth. You have Mark Scheifele, great. You have Paul Stastny, pretty great. You have Pierre-Luc Dubois now. And this was the guy that if you take a look at what happens in the future, if you guys don't bring back Paul Stastny, this is your guy that will be here, cultivate that top 6 center position, and just be a rock. Well, guess what? Pierre-Luc Dubois was one of the most invisible forwards out there the previous few games against Montreal. Yeah, I saw all the games. Wasn't really all too great from Pierre-Luc Dubois' end. The playoffs version of Dubois that we saw last year against Toronto and Tampa, that guy didn't exist in this year's playoffs against Montreal. Sorry. This is a guy that completely just disappeared, and in fact, he fell in his face when he tried to block the centering pass for Tyler Toffoli in the overtime. Pierre-Luc Dubois is in a spot where this guy just completely exhibited some of the same problems he did in Columbus before he got traded. Remember when it was publicized that he wants out? He was sitting at however many points in however many games. He finished off his career in Columbus with a goal in 5 games in 2021, but he was going out there not skating. He was just gliding around, getting caught flat-footed on defensive rushes and all that. He wasn't good. And you could say it's motivation. You could say it's, he doesn't have that drive to want to do well or whatever, but this kind of play sort of, in a way, translated to what we saw in the series against Montreal. And it's made even further by the fact that you didn't have Paul Stastny in some of these games. You lost Mark Scheifele for almost all the games. This was supposed to be Pierre-Luc Dubois' coming out party. This was supposed to be Pierre-Luc Dubois saying, okay, you wanted the Pierre-Luc Dubois that showed up against Toronto that was so good in the bubble. Here I am. This is my time to shine. This is why you traded Patrik Laine, a potential Rocket Richard winner in the future, for me. And we didn't get that. Meanwhile, the other asset in that trade, Jack Roslovic, sent over to Columbus with Laine, has literally been the best player to come out of this trade. Jack Roslovic had 34 points in 48 games with the Blue Jackets. He fit pretty well under the Tortorella style. He didn't even need to quarantine because he was already in Columbus. He's from there. He came over to the Blue Jackets and was legitimately really good for that team. And it was in a position where we all knew there was a good amount of talent to deliver with Jack Roslovic. He had himself a good skill set that could translate on the score sheet. But in Winnipeg, they just didn't give him that chance, which is why he was even disgruntled in the first place and why he was probably a lot more happier to get traded to his hometown team than stick around in Peg City. And so now, you take a look at the short-term implications. What did the Blue Jackets gain out of this Dubois trade? Well, they lost a guy who was clearly not motivated in playing for them, and they acquired a guy that was benched, that was sat on the fourth line, that didn't really produce at the way they wanted him to, and in fact produced the same amount of points as Pierre-Luc Dubois. But they got Jack Roslovic, who's pretty okay too. As for the Jets, what did they get when they traded Laine and Roslovic? Well, they got a guy that didn't really show up in the playoffs. He probably was playing injured. Like, I honestly would be willing to bet money that he probably was not 100% healthy, which is why he probably faltered the way he did. But still, faltering is faltering. He was in there whether he was injured or not. He was playing and he wasn't great. Pierre-Luc Dubois really disappointed in this series against Montreal. And when Jets fans wanted him to be the best version of himself because he kind of needed to be, he wasn't. So, yeah, lose-lose, is it? Short term, at least, lose-lose. Sure, Laine could get a Rocket Richard next year, and Dubois can win the Selke next year, and I'll eat my words. But in the short term, just a few months removed from the Laine-Dubois trade. Yeah, it didn't really work out too well for either of these teams, didn't it? Talk to me in the comments what you thought about this video idea over here. What are your thoughts on the trade? What are your thoughts on these players and the way they performed this season? I hope you enjoyed this Visage Rolls 99. And bye.